Hi, welcome back to another episode of Sail Juice. I'm Mike Madge. I'm coming to you from Thunder Bay, Ontario. And joining me today, all the way from Western Australia, is the current or recent, very recent Hobie 16 World Champions. We got Suzzi Ghent and Cam Owen with us. Thank you very much for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having us, Mike.
Yep, yeah. Nice to see you.
So have you had a chance to process it yet, or is it still all too new?
Look, it is sinking in. It is new, but there's no rest. We get straight back and into work, and it's long forgotten. You know, we're not professional sailors, unfortunately, so we're straight back into real life.
No, I know you say you're not professional sailors, but I mean, in my opinion, like winning a Hobie 16 Worlds has to be one of the hardest classes to win. The format of it, the equal boats, the switching of boats, the quality of the fleet. I know, Cam, you've had success in the ACAT, and Sue, you're a very successful sailor. Would you agree with me on that? It's a pretty tough event to win.
Yeah, it's really unique. We're very lucky in the Hobie class to be able to race like that on the equally matched boats, and I think it's really great about our class. Gives everyone a fair go, and it's really challenging too. So yeah, I think it's great. It's hard. It's definitely hard to be changing boats and setting everything up and having that routine to get it done quickly. But it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. It's good fun. But it is, and there are very good sailors. We were up in the race, a couple of the races. We had 3 or 4 world champions, either excellent current world champions either side of us, and they don't cut much slack. And you can tell that it's a tough race when you look at the spread of results in the top 5 or 6 boats. You know, there's some big numbers in those results, which means that it's no one's running away with it.
So you and Sue have sailed together for quite a few years now, and how important is that to keep a team together on the Hobie 16 like that?
Well, we're very lucky. I've got to say, yeah, we're really lucky. It does take, I think, I've only ever sailed with Sue's really, so I haven't really had to change crews, but I've seen other skippers have to change crews and get their teamwork back up and running, and it does hold them back a little bit, I think. We're very lucky that we sort of know what each other are going to do, and I know that if I throw in some random manoeuvre to get us out of trouble, Suze will be able to cope with it because she's used to that.
I'm always holding on.
Yeah.
Now, Sue, I mean, I know you've sailed with a couple other Hobie 16 guys, but I mean, what do you look towards Cam? What do you think his qualities are that make him a good skipper?
Oh, that's a very interesting question. I don't know if I've had that one before. Well, Cam's a good helm. We've been sailing together for a bit over 16 years, nearly 17 years now. When we got on the boat at first together, Cam came off other high-performance cats and things, and I could certainly tell he was a good skipper and certainly knew what he was doing. But the Hobie 16 is quite a different boat to sail, as you know. So I think that was just an interesting journey for us to go and learn sailing the boat together. And I don't know, what are you doing good?
Look, I think we actually complement each other really well because I'm a bit loose and a bit fiery, I guess, and Suze on the other side much more organised and settled down on the boat. So we just seem, I think we complement each other well. So it's not so much what I do or what Suze does. I think we pick up and cover for each other's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, we do. We're pretty good team effort. We like it.
So you've obviously you've been together quite a while, and you've had quite a few success: Australian Nationals, European Championships, the Pro Sail event in Silk. Numerous good results in Worlds. I'm just wondering your thought going into this Worlds. Was it one of you were very confident from the experience of the previous Worlds? Were you a little bit nervous that you've been knocking on the door and you haven't really? Where was your confidence level going into the event?
Well, we knew we'd done all the work we could do, so we were as prepared as we could have been at that point in time. But I don't think we were confident. We've been in a similar position before, and we haven't been able to string it together. So I think we were prepared, but certainly not confident. When you're racing Saba and Gav and Darren and the Butler and all those other, and world champion Daniel Bornholt, you can keep reeling them off. It's tough, and you just don't know where you're going to be. And like last Worlds, Yamil Saba came out of nowhere. I didn't know, I'd never seen him or sailed against him, and he came out and won it. So you don't go in there with any boat speed advantage, anything that you can really bring to the event other than preparation. So we were confident in our preparation. I guess that's probably the way to put it.
Yeah, we really enjoyed the process of getting ready for the Worlds, and we knew we felt like we'd done everything we needed to do to give ourselves the best chance, and then the rest was just, out on the water each day, go and give it our best shot. Try not to make any mistakes.
Now you mentioned being very well prepared, but I know it's still very early in your season. So what did that involve? Did you have to sail through the winter? Did you get a chance to have any pre-regattas or?
That's actually a good question, Mike, because initially the Worlds was planned for May, but it was delayed again through COVID. And we were thinking, beauty, in May, it'll be the end of our season. We'll be sailing fit and ready to go. But then we started when it was postponed. So we spent our summer sailing in Perth, and it was predominantly windy. We had the boat set up and we're going really quick in 20-25 knots. But we went over and did a few regattas over east that were quite light over, at the other side of Australia, which is 3 or 4,000 kilometres away from where we are. So we had to borrow boats and everything, and the conditions were quite different. And we'd actually lost a bit of form, I felt, So we went over there and it was a bit of a wake-up call, which was really good. And then, fortunately, over winter in Perth, we get quite varied and mixed conditions. So they were quite light and quite fluky and marginal sort of breeze, which is what we were anticipating. So we were able to sail pretty much all winter, every weekend at different venues. And probably the best thing that we had going for us was Darren Smith was on the same program. So we were really working and pushing each other as hard as we could every race. He's relentless. Him and Claire are relentless, aren't they?
They sure are, yep. So we're actually quite lucky in Perth. Winter's not too bad. We don't get any snow, and our waters don't ice over. So I think the coldest we had was an evening sail when it was about 9 degrees and raining. But we just kept our routine, kept getting out a few times a week, and made sure we, were comfortable with the boat and everything. And we're lucky to have a real mix of conditions, as Cam said. There's a few winter series here too, which is great. So we could sail on the ocean in a winter series, and on the river where we sail normally at Nedlands Yacht Club with our fleet.
So you mentioned the name Darren Smith. It rang a bell because he's actually one of the first interviews I ever did, and I recognize how good a sailor he is and how lucky you are to train with him. So the question is, when you train with him, was it strictly just racing, or were you doing some boat-on-boat tuning, or how did that work with your training with him?
Both. Yeah, we would try and line up times on the weekend where we could both go. If there was no racing, we'd find a slot if we could on a Saturday or even midweek occasionally, and then do some two-boating. Gav jumped in towards the end and came and did a few sessions with us as well on the river. So that's always good because he jumps in and he's fast. So that was he's always quick. So it sort of gave us a good reference that we were going fast. So yeah, look, every opportunity we had to race against Darren, we would, and it was at least once a week. It'd be either racing and then some just two boat tuning, which is really valuable as well.
Yeah. So the Gavin you're talking about would be Gavin Colby, I imagine.
Yeah.
And he's He's doing quite well at the F-18 Worlds right now. I think he's sitting in third spot.
Yeah, I saw that. He'd be. I don't know. He'd be shaping up pretty well tomorrow. I think they'll probably have 3 or 4 more races. He's only a few points out of it, so hopefully he'll have a good day.
So in the Worlds event, you guys' scores were very consistent. I don't think it's a big secret that consistency wins regattas, especially week-long regattas. But when you talk to sailors and they said, "Oh, we sail consistently." You never quite get, what do you mean by, what do you shoot for when you're trying to say consistent? I mean, everybody wants to be consistent, but what does that entail? Being conservative at the starts, playing more the middle of the course? What were some of your keys to being consistent?
Well, it's just our risk management, really, in situations and things. So, there was a few times where we didn't just try and go for the win. We were happy to sit with a second or a third, and just stay in check with the pack and just make sure we were getting those good scores and not do anything crazy and sort of trying to go high risk to grab a win.
Yeah.
And then if we were back in the pack, we just tried to not panic, keep our cool, and just chip away at the race. And we had a few big comebacks. There were a few times we were, quite deep in the pack after a start or just a little error on the first leg, and then we just sort of manage how we tackle, catching a pack of boats and passing them, and so I guess our risk would change each race depending on where we were positioned. And we managed to keep some consistent scores through the event, which was really important for us. Yeah,
we were very conservative on the start line. We did have a couple of bad starts in the Masters, and we're able to fight our way out of that. And from that, we got nailed at the boat once, we got nailed down the pin once, and then we thought, we've just got to step back and get off the line. All we really want to do is be pretty clean and get to the top mark in the top 5 or 10 boats. And I think if we can be in that sort of shape, we'll be able to get a reasonable result. When we weren't in that sort of shape, it was just navigating our way through the fleet, clean lanes, really keeping your nose clean, and just getting a good run at it, because there's so many boats around and they just suck you back.
Yeah. We'd always have a bit of a strategy too, what we want after the start, if we wanted to continue or if we want to tack, and then just try and have that in mind coming off the line.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is that the World's boats, I don't know if everybody's aware, but when you come in, quite often you're changing boats, very little time to change a boat, getting it set up to the way you want. So what sort of routine do you have for that? Like, who does what to check things?
Yeah, look, we actually, as part of our preparation, and we've probably failed to do this in other worlds, we've come unstuck, we put a lot of time into our boat at home and changing boats. We did a couple of regattas over east, so we swapped and changed boats and had some simple checks to make sure that we're in the ballpark. So we really became familiar with them and had them sort of etched in our brains before we went over there. But then once we do get over there, yes, we have a check sheet. We have I look after stuff, Suze looks after stuff, and they're prioritised. The things that you have to do on the beach are obviously the first things you do. So you check the rudders and alignments, the jib tack positions, all the things you cannot do off the boat. And then you bring that back down to things like trapeze heights and whatever else you might be working on. You leave that till last. You can always sort that out on the water. But yeah, we've got almost a checklist that we don't really need to use, but we've worked through it and understand what we really do need to do.
I actually did check our checklist when you weren't looking before every race, so we do have a list.
Well, there you go. She cleans up.
I think you guys were a little after the time, but I think I don't know if you're familiar with the Metcalfs when they were the Hobies, and they used to almost have a NASCAR pit crew working on their boat between races. It was quite impressive to watch. So it was just you two. You didn't have a whole crew working with you, helping you?
No, just us. And
we probably prefer it that way, actually, because then we're responsible for it too. You know, if you don't want a knot to come undone or something and go, oh, well, that wasn't me. We'd rather have the responsibility ourselves and make sure it's done.
So a couple of questions asked you. Like, I know they've gone to a global boat on the Hobie 16, so the boats are much more similar to the ones you're racing at home. I've owned, I think, 4 Hobie 16s, checked with other boats. And even though they're one design and they're single manufacturer, one design, there is variances in them. So how much do you rely on your settings at home when you go to a Worlds boat? Are you saying, well, my pins are going to be in the exact same location, or you're
Yeah, not at all, actually. We set up our boat at home and we know what it looks like, but we don't think that those settings are transferable at all across to other boats. You really need to understand the boat and have a method of checking where your rig sets on the boat, because there's no straight lines on Hobie Cats, so there's no real obvious measurement points that you can do quickly and easily. So we know a couple of the key measurements that we rely on are the jib tack height. That's sort of our baseline. So if we know where the jib tack height is, and that's a simple measurement across the bows up to that, the rest of the boat can flow back from then. So you can set the jib tack height, that sets the jib sheet and clue board positions, and that sheets the side stay, and that determines the side stay heights and the main sheet tension effectively. And your jib halyard is the fine tuning of that.
And each boat's a little different. Certainly at the Worlds, we weren't in the same settings on every boat. So we just spent a few minutes on the beach, just sheeting on and making sure it sort of feels right the best you can on the beach, because of course when you go out in the water and load it up, it's a little bit different. But yeah, it's just about practicing, getting a feel for it and knowing what the boat should kind of set up like.
And they did change, like the Masters boats, they just settled in a little bit over between the Masters and the Open. So we were probably a hole further down on the side stays on most boats, and we were different clue board positions on the jib. But it's just a matter of having that reference point now to flow it back.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot to mention you won also the Masters World Championship too. Yeah. So it seems to get lost there. But so how much do you think that helped you winning that event, getting on the boats early? Do you think that gave you an advantage going into the Open?
Yeah, look, it was good for us because we'd been stuck in Perth for 2.5 years. We'd just been able to get out in March. So we haven't really had the opportunity to do too much fleet racing. So the opportunity to do the Masters was really good. There was no chance we weren't going to do that, and then it was good to have get used to the boats and the conditions, because the place was different, and it was it's always helpful to get a feel for the race course, left, right, swell, no swell, those type of issues.
Although this time at the Worlds, being the very end of summer, the Masters was a completely different weather pattern to the Open. So we're sort of in the second sort of series in the middle week, which was a break for us. The weather changed. It rained, there's some thunderstorms, and it got really cold. So it's different.
But it was different. But yet it was worth it. Getting a handle on the boats and the course and the setup was I think, very beneficial.
Yeah, sorry, I just want to go back to your settings again. And is there anything you adjust on the water? Like, would you go out and get a feel how your boat's do you double pin your side stays? Are you allowed to do that, or?
You have to do it at the Worlds. They put 2 pins in them so that you step them up and down, so that you've never got the wire out of the rig without being.
But we don't often change our side states. We didn't do that once at the Worlds. The jib halyard's probably the main sort of rig setting that we would change. If we felt we were a bit underdone, we'd tighten up the jib halyard or and then of course you've got your jib cars and traveller cars and those sort of things that you adjust more just in time as you need to. But we really set it up on the beach, and if all was right when we left, we wouldn't have to adjust it. But if there were major, say the wind picked up, and we had the opportunity, we might drop the side stays. If it really got up windy, we might drop down a hole, or if we might lower the clue board position on the jib to free that open a little bit, or let a bit more jib halyard off. Most of the time, we're pretty settled on the boat, though.
Okay, so none of the it was in vogue in North America for a while for people to be adjusting the jib halyard tension upwind and downwind, letting it off a little bit downwind to let the mast go forward. None of that. You didn't do any of that.
That's a bit complicated, really. I think for us when we're racing, we like to just sail and be able to sail the boat properly and keep it settled and concentrate on the racing. We wouldn't really be doing any adjustments like that. I think we're just a bit of downhaul sometimes, but that's about it, really.
Once the race has started,
we do all of that beforehand and just sort of work out a setting that we wanted for the conditions for the race.
But if the wind were to drop out and we felt we needed a bit more grunt, we might try and tighten up the halyard mid-race downwind or something like that if we felt we needed to. But normally we wouldn't, because doing things like that, you can come unstuck.
And do you do any adjustments on your jib traveller upwind? Are you setting it in pretty tight most of the time, or are you letting it out a little bit to increase your leech tension?
Well, we've got different settings for the wind conditions. So, we would normally leave it on a leg. if the wind changed quite a bit during a leg, then maybe through a tack, I'd adjust them again. But we do have our different settings for different wind conditions. So generally we're in further in the lighter winds, and then we travel out as it gets breezier.
That's the windier it is, the further out they go.
Yeah. So one of the things that it must be tricky at a world's competition is identifying your competition when you're out on the course. I mean, with switching boats and equal, colorful sails, do you find it hard? Like, you obviously know who you're competing against after the first or second day. How do you keep track of where the guys you're trying to stay in touch with?
You can recognize them for sure, the way they sail their boats and stuff. I guess when you're most of the time towards the beginning of the regatta, they're all boats. You just want to sort of do your best in the race. But then, you certainly try and spot them. As you're getting towards the end of the regatta, you're looking out for them. You can generally find them pretty easily through the pack.
Yeah, the day of the first day of the final series, when we're assigned our boats, you are assigned the boat number that you positioned in the semi-finals.
Oh, that was easier.
So if in the first day of the finals, the top 15 boats, all the yellow boats,
top 24, was it?
All the top 15 were all in yellow boats. So if number one, you knew that was Darren because he'd won he was leading at the semis, and I think we were two. And so that day, you knew pretty much who was who. Beat the yellow ones, and they were the ones to watch out for. The last day, it is hard. It is hard. So you just got to find out. And when it comes to the last day, that's the day that it probably really matters to know who the competition is. So you just have to find out, walking around the beach, and
that's my job. So, in the last race, which we went out to start, that was my job at the start, was to find our competitors and, just give Cam the information about where they were and what they looked like they were planning to do on the first beat. We do keep an eye on them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the 16 is a boat that seems to, almost upwind. There's almost like a cone where you can sail and still be fast. Either a foot mode or a high mode. did you find there was a big variance in the fleet? Did which mode did you try and stay in the most you found in those conditions?
That's a great question. There's a clear example in my mind anyway of that. We came around the gate and did a left turn in third place or fourth place. The third place went right, but we were behind Yamil Saba and Gav Colby. Yamil was going high, Gav was footing, and they were both sort of sailing. They were sailing totally different. We were forced to sort of stay high on Saba's line because we needed to keep our breeze sort of clear. And then when they tacked, they came back pretty close. So they were both super quick, both sailing totally differently, but both ended up in the same sort of spot at the end of that leg. But we probably are more in a fleet position like that. We're probably more on the high side than the foot side. You just got to keep your line and keep your breeze clear and maintain VMG. And a couple of times we were, Gav's super quick. Gav Colby super quick on the foot mode. He's really quick. It's just we are sailing high. Our VMGs are similar, but it's just where you are in the course and how much breeze it is. Because the other thing, we never really got we never got much more than 15 knots. So I think the foot sort of send it mode for us kicks in probably a little bit more breeze.
Yeah. Depends on what we're trying to do in the fleet as well and what the boats around us are doing.
So the Hobie 16, as you know, has been around a long time, and I know there's been a lot of changes to it to improve, making it easier to sail and faster, lighter boats, smaller blocks, better sheets, integrated traveler. Again, you might be a little bit young to remember, but there used to be a book out called Welcome to A-Fleet by Jack Salmons. It was big over here in North America, and it was written back in the 70s anyways. And at the time, he said, at that time, people were sailing the boat about 80% of its potential. And now, after all these years of sailing and improvements, do you still think there's a room for improvement, a speed? Is there still things you're finding that are making you faster, I guess is what I'm trying to say, or the boat faster?
Yeah, we're always learning. I don't think we've nailed it yet, for sure.
They're such subtle boats. Subtle changes can make significant differences. We've found for a couple of years there, we were struggling in that 8 to 12 sort of knot range. We were really quick either side of that, but to close that gap we had to work quite hard to come up with rig settings and setups for those conditions. But then they change in different sea conditions as well. So you always, I think we've got the boat reasonably well wired, but different conditions, different breezes, different places all impact, and the impacts are often very, very subtle.
Yeah, we're always observing other boats too. So on the race course, I'm always feeding the information back to Cam, whether we're the same height or lower or, faster or slower or whatever we are compared to other boats in the fleet, so that we can make changes to our trim, moving our body weight around or, how we're trimming our sails and the angle we're steering just to check our speed.
What always sort of surprises me is the speed differences downwind. When we're all just sailing downwind, there's no real... it's just you point the boat and trimming the sails, but some teams can just get so much speed that you're always trying to capture that and learn that and improve.
Yeah, well, I wanted to just elaborate on that because I've seen a few teams and I've actually had some foreign teams crew for me, and I know I'm not going to mention the nationalities, but some are much more kinetic than others. A little bit of ooching, pumping. Would you say you're more of a smooth type sailor, or do you endorse some of the ooching and pumping? I mean, legally, it is legal.
Yeah. Well, we've tried it all, and I don't think we probably have a clear answer on that one because we We
Depends on
do
the
keep
conditions.
changing.
Well, it depends on the conditions.
Yeah.
And I think there's a wind speed where you can't be aggressive below, and it feels like you should be ooching and pumping and getting onto these waves, but you lose more doing it.
Yeah.
And you're better off just sailing deep and slow or deep and smooth. But as soon as you get above that breeze or the waves come at a certain angle, then it'll work. But if they're at a different angle, it may not work. So, yeah, certainly we have been really active on the boat in certain conditions. We will ooch and pump and do that better as hard as anyone in the world. But we're probably just a bit cautious of when we would start it and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Certainly, if there's waves, we move a lot and try and catch the waves. But then we do make sure we communicate to each other. So we sort of say sometimes, "Oh, let's not get too greedy here because we're trying to work hard to catch a wave, and it doesn't work. Then it's worse because you fall off the wave and you lose a lot of speed trying to and then you got to try and power the boat back up again. So we communicate that on the day.
Yeah. And so, Sue, most people know, like, the crew is very important downwind. Are you adjusting your jib trim quite a bit downwind, or the old style used to be kind of set your sails and steer your bridle at 90 degrees, and I think most people are catching on. That's not necessarily fast. It takes a lot more adjustment.
It depends on the conditions again. So there are some times where we do keep the jib very steady, and I just sort of work with Cam on the angle that he's comfortable sailing at, and then just do small trim adjustments, not very often, just, as the breeze changes or as we need to change our angle of sail. So some days we'll be pretty settled with the jib sheet, and then other days we'll go into a different mode where I will trim more. So if we're really working waves and steering and working the boat a lot, or we're getting, breeze changes, then I will be trimming a lot.
I think there's a danger in trimming the jib too much a lot, because the skipper, being me, is trying to steer to that jib, and it's not only the telecat that we're trying to line up, it's also the flow on the jib. And if I'm steering to that flow and it's changing and you're not aligned, you start to fall out of it and you go really slow. So we actually worked reasonably hard on just settling that down over the last few months and just allowing the boat to follow the jib. So in the theory, the jib's sort of sucking us around the course a bit.
Yeah, we need to be in sync with that.
So, Sue, I know you've done some coaching and you put some crewing clinics on and that. Well, when you go and you're working with new crew, what are some of the key things you're working with them on? Do you encourage them to go with other skippers and as many boats as they can, different skippers, or do you prefer them to stay with one? Or
well, I guess I haven't really had that conversation too much with people. When I've worked, usually they'd be in a team. They're sort of working together to get better together. But that's a good idea to sail with other people and learn, because everyone's a bit different and you can learn new things off other people. That definitely helps. I think you'll find in the Hobie fleet, everybody sails the boat a bit differently. So, it's good to learn off others. And I guess some of the main things for the crew are to keep themselves tidy. There's a lot of rope there on the boat that the crew needs to help keep clean, so the skipper can do their job well, and the crew's got time to tidy it up. That's certainly something people always ask me, how to hold all of the main sheet traveller rope and all the jib sheet and still be able to uncleat things without getting in a mess. That's a pretty key thing. And being stable on the boat too, so that they can tack and jibe and move through the boat, flick the jib battens cleanly around the mast, and just have their routine and process and be really confident in doing that, so that everything works nice and smoothly and they don't fall off or.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just two more questions. I know it's early for you. You got to get going. Cam, I heard on a recent interview your viewpoint on youth sailing, how you thought we're going the wrong direction with that. I'd like you just to elaborate on that. What you were thinking, or
Yeah, look, I can't speak for America or Europe, but in Australia we don't have huge numbers of youth coming through, and a lot of them are channeled into youth classes. Like, say, for catamarans, I'm looking at the NACRA 15, and for parents to put their kids into an NACRA 15, it's a significant cost. You know, I'm a parent, and there's no way I'd be able to put kids into an NACRA 15, and then they get on it, and they're not sailing in fleets because there's not enough of them. So they're sailing around on NACRA 15s, being coached, but not really racing. And you can't, you know, you need to race. You need to race, and you need to race against good boats to be a good sailor. And I think that's why we did okay. You know, one of the reasons we did well at the last Worlds is because when I grew up, I was sailing as a 15-year-old kid in 60-boat fleets against adults who were punishing us every time we made a mistake. And I think these kids, if they could just get into the Hobie fleet, race against the likes of us in Australia, and if they can compete with us, then they're going to have that foundation that will set them up to go into real boats, real open Olympic fleets. And the likes of the Jason Waterhouse, that was the example that I used. He grew up in Hobies, getting hammered by us and by 100 other Hobie sailors, and learnt how to race and navigate his way through a fleet. And I just think that's what a lot of these young kids are probably missing out on. Oops.
I just wanted to share the screen. A pretty happy moment for you guys at the end of the regatta. Looks like a lot of relief and happiness there. Understood?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was a bit of fun.
Yeah.
So one last question. You mentioned Jason Waterhouse, Billy Beeson. A lot of people have, come up through the Hobie circles. Obviously, it's a great boat to you can learn all your catamaran skills. A lot of them have parlayed it into other things, Sail GP, Olympics. I guess the question I'm leading to is, what's next for you? Are you guys? Are you thinking of sticking with a class, or are you gonna?
Yeah, we're pretty settled in the 16, and like you said, a lot of people have come through it, but all those people are having, they've all come through it and had a lot of fun, and we really enjoy the 16. We enjoy the community and the fleet, and that's where we're at the moment. And I can't imagine us being in a position to do much else in the way of racing. We're just enjoying it.
We'd love to do a bit more travel too. You make some really great friends in the Hobie fleet all around the world, and it's fun to go and see them and sail together. So we'd like to do a bit more travel. Hopefully the world will stay normal for a while now and we can get out again, do Europeans. We haven't been to North America and
Canada,
or the US much. So, we have been to Canada together on a Hobie. So maybe we'll head over that way sometime too.
Yeah, that would be great to have you. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. And once again, congratulations.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you.